MSWSA from the Financially Fit Group, and I help entrepreneurs and individuals to thrive financially in business and personally. Thank you for joining us today as part of Money Smart Week. And today I'm going to talk to you about starting a business and become financially independent. Now, if we just think about what we are experiencing at the moment, what is our current reality? If we think back pre-lockdown, the South African economy was already struggling a bit. We had rate downgrades and quite a few businesses and households struggled. But then lockdown started and it became much worse. The financial impact on the economy, businesses, households, and individuals was phenomenal. There was just so much financial stress. And if we think about what is happening, there are so many job losses, retrenchments happening all the time. Then there's also people who have retained their jobs, but they had to deal with salary reductions. And a lot of employees also didn't receive any bonuses during 2020. So this is really a tough period for South Africans, and we definitely also see that because of inflation, our salary increases are most of the times no longer keeping up with the inflation. And all of this is causing severe financial stress. So what can we potentially do about it? If I have to think about what was emphasized during this lockdown period, or what was one of the lessons that we have learned, that is, if we rely on only one salary or one business income, or whatever the type of income might be, but it's only one source of income, then a lot of us experienced immense pressure. And we could also most likely no longer keep up with our normal living standard. Now, what can we do about it? One solution is that we can cut our expenses. We can implement an effective budget, and we can really dig down into our spending and see how we can reduce our expenses to the absolute minimum. And I believe this is something that a lot of people in South Africa had to do during the past year. But the reality is that you can also only cut your expenses to a certain minimum. And then there is no longer room to cut expenses even further. So what else can you do? Because what happened now during lockdown is that a lot of people's income was impacted too. And even though South Africans are known for being overspending and having too much debt, if you are no longer receiving an income, there's even more pressure on you. So what is the ideal solution? I truly believe the best solution to face our current circumstances would be to create more income. And I know this is often not that easy to create more income. And then we also don't only want to create more income, we actually want to try and create multiple sources of income. Now, by having multiple sources of income, we have seen during the lockdown period that the people who had those sources in place, they experienced a lot less financial stress. because they had that peace in mind that if something went wrong at their employer or at their business, they could still fall back on the other sources of income. But apart from that, multiple sources of income will also help you to create wealth. And the best thing, it will also help you to create financial independence. So how can you create more income? First of all, there are the active ways that we can create more income. And that would be something like where you get a promotion at work, and by getting that promotion, you earn more, a better salary, or you start working overtime and you get paid overtime. And you can also consider applying for another job, a more senior job, maybe at another company which will offer you a bigger salary. But all of these are obviously active options that you have to follow. And what I mean by active is that you are actually having to spend more time to earn this income. Then there's also the sources that we refer to as passive income. Now, those income sources you can create by starting to invest and receive some investment returns on your investments. You can also start a property portfolio where you can earn rental income on your properties. And then there's also the one where you can start a business to create more income. Now, if we think about the active options that I've mentioned, the problem with that is that it is time consuming. You need to spend that time on that job or on that doing overtime to earn that money. And the problem is you only have limited capacity when it comes to the number of hours during a day that you have available to do that job. The nice thing about the passive income sources is that that can later on buy you time freedom. You no longer have to spend time to earn money. You can earn money on your investments while you are not actively working on it. The same with property, the same with businesses. And that is why it is so important when you start a business that you have this in mind, that you might at the beginning have to spend a lot of time starting and building and growing your business, but that you already have the bigger vision that later on you will have a business that can run independently from you and you can earn money in a passive way. If I have to think about a survey that they have conducted a couple of years ago, asking what do billionaires have in common, the answer was that they all have at least 5 different investment types and 7 different sources of income. And I think that is what's proving my point, why it is so important for you to create multiple sources of income, because that helps them to create wealth, to build financial independence, and to achieve what they have achieved in life. And then if you also have to look at what those billionaires are doing, then you would see that almost all of them, as part of those investment types, they have businesses, sometimes multiple businesses. And that is again proving why being a business owner can help you to create wealth and financial independence. But I know to just start off with a business is not that easy. And during this time where we experience many job losses, retrenchments, a lot of people are forced into starting a business because that is almost the only solution. But then there's also the other people who are starting to think, but going forward, I should start the business on the side so that I can start creating multiple income sources because I don't want to be in this position of financial insecurity ever again. So let me take you through 10 steps how to start a successful business. First of all, you obviously need to have a business idea. You need to know what product or service are you going to offer. But you cannot only just start and kicking off and there you go with your business. Once you have that idea, you first need to do a lot of research. You need to understand if there is a market for that product or service you want to offer. But apart from the fact that there could be a market, you also need to establish whether the market is willing to pay for your product or service. Because it could be that you might have the best business idea with the nicest product or service that you want to offer, but there's not really a market for it. Or there might be a market, but the people are not willing to pay for it. And if that is not there, then obviously your business will fail. Then you need to think about a business plan. And this is such a critical factor for anybody who wants to start off with a business. You really need to go sit down and do proper planning how you want to run your business, how you want to start it, but also how you want to grow it. Where do you see your business in 1 year, in 5 years, in 10 years from now? What's your goals? What's your bigger vision for your business? What do you want to achieve? And then you also need to think about all the details about your business. So starting off with preparing a proper business plan is absolutely crucial for any business to succeed. Then you also need to think about what would you need when you start off. Would you need a computer? Would you need certain equipment? What are those things that you would need from day one to start off? But what other things do you probably need in a couple of months? And then I'm also thinking about things like working capital. Then you also need to think about the place of operation. Where are you going to run your business from? Can you run it from your home? Is your home set up for this kind of business? Do you maybe need business rights? Then also you need to think, do you maybe need an office or maybe a factory or something that would again have consequences of paying rent, or you need to have capital to buy something like that? Or can you maybe run your business online and you do not really need an office or a study or something? You can run it effectively from home and you do not really need a specific space. Then you also need to think about capital and funding requirements. Do you have money to buy the equipment, the computers, if you maybe need an office? Do you have working capital to pay the start of expenses? And then you also need to think, if you are starting a business from scratch and you are no longer employed, Then you also need to make provision for your personal expenses, because you need to pay yourself a salary, or you need to be able to be in a position to still survive during the initial period, because very few businesses are profitable from day one. So you need to think, how much capital would you need to start off and to keep you going for at least the first year. But then you also need to think, if you do not have that money saved up, where can you get that money from? Can you maybe get a loan from a bank, some funding from institutions, maybe borrow some money from a family member or a partner? So very critical questions that you need to ask yourself. Then you also need to think about the business entity. In what type of entity do you want to run your business? Do you maybe want to start off with as a sole proprietor, which is a lot less formal? There's limited requirements, and that is for most people the best way to start off, because there's not a lot of compliance and regulations that you need to comply with. So you can start off with something like being a sole proprietor, but then later on, when your business is growing, you maybe start with, or you convert to a company, or if you later on get partners in, you maybe start a partnership. So that is also something you need to think about, because all of those different entities will obviously have different tax implications, and all of those entities also have different rules that you need to take into account in terms of how you are going to run and operate your business. You will also need a bank account. And this is also where a lot of people starting out a business goes wrong. They use their personal bank account. And I will definitely not recommend this for any business owner out there. Create a separate bank account. Open a separate bank account with a bank, and look around which banks offer the best bank charges and the best packages for start-up businesses. But it's very important that even if you are a sole proprietor, that you still have a bank account that is separate from your personal bank account, and that when you start doing business, you keep your personal and your business finances completely separate. Then you also need to think about marketing. Now, for a lot of people, this is a very challenging aspect, because you need to figure out what will work well for your business. And the problem is that there is no blueprint. What might work well for your friend or somebody else who has started a similar business might not work well for you. So this is sometimes a bit of a trial and error. What marketing channels will work best for you? And there you need to think about a website. Do you need a website from the start? Because again, there is costs involved to build and design that website, but also to host that website on a monthly basis, and you also need to be able to maintain that website. Then there's social media. Are you going to use Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, YouTube? What are the social media channels that will work best for you? Are you maybe going to use brochures and adverts? Or are you going to have a direct marketing solution or channel where you are going to approach potential clients and customers directly, setting up meetings with them, discussing with them more about your product or service and how it can benefit them? or in many instances, you will have a combination of different marketing solutions and channels that might work for you. But marketing is critical, because even if you have the best product or service, but nobody knows about you, then nobody is going to buy from you. Then there's also the accounting and the finances. And this is quite often to people who are starting out a business who doesn't come from a financial background, a very daunting part of the business. But unfortunately, your finances is very critical for the success of any business. And when you are starting out, it is important that you set a good and strong financial foundation from day one. So you need to make sure you spend time on your financial management and your accounting, and make sure that you have the adequate knowledge about the finances of your business. So here you will have to think, would you need an accounting system right from day one? Or are you maybe going to start off with Excel, where there isn't costs involved, and as your business grow and evolve, you can convert onto an accounting system? Or if you are going to use an accounting system from day one, which accounting package are you going to make use of? Then you also need to establish, are you going to do your accounting and finances yourself from day one? Or are you rather going to use an accountant and outsource it to an accountant from the start? Because when you do outsource it to an accountant, there's again costs involved that you need to take into account. And if you are going to do it yourself, then you obviously need to make sure that you have the knowledge and the experience, that you go on webinars, that you read up a lot about the accounting and the financial management requirements that will suit your type of business. Then coming to the last step of the 10 steps how to start a successful business. That would be compliance. And again, compliance is something that a lot of people see as an administrative burden. And apart from the fact that quite a lot of people do not have the knowledge in terms of what are all the acts and the regulations and the laws out there that they need to comply with, it is also something that when you start off, it takes a lot of time, and there's quite often a lot of costs involved in making sure you do comply with everything that you need to comply with. Now, if I'm thinking about compliance, I'm thinking about tax, because you will have to be registered with SARS. You will have to know which taxes will apply to you from the start. Are you registered for tax? And then you need to know when you will have to submit your returns, what's the tax deadlines, all those kind of things you need to consider. You also need to think about registrations. If you maybe want to start a company, you will have to register your company with SIPs. There could also be various other types of registrations that will apply to you when you are starting out. Then there would also be industry regulations. Now, this would depend on what type of industry your business will be operating in. And you need to go make sure that you know what are the requirements, or there may be health and safety requirements that you need to comply with. What are the things that the industry require from you to make sure your business is legitimate and that you have everything in place, especially when you start doing business, and people maybe ask you for those certificates, memberships, or whatever the case might be. Then there's also licenses. You need to know whether you will need some license to operate under, and sometimes to apply for these licenses take a while, and you cannot really start operating until you have this license in place. So this will impact on when you can start your business. But then there's also, if you maybe need certain software or something, there could also be licenses that you will have to require from day one, and that again will have some costs. So these are just 10 steps that I believe is very critical when you start out a business to make sure that you can run a business successfully. And I know for a lot of people it's daunting and it's difficult to quite often step out of your comfort zone and start something that is new, something that you don't know whether it will succeed or whether it will fail. But I still want to encourage you. This, to me, is definitely one of the best solutions that you can apply to make sure that you are creating multiple income sources and that you can become financially independent and that you can create wealth over time. So my best advice to you today is take action. If you have that idea that you, or that dream that you want to achieve, go out there and do it. You will never regret it later on. Even if you start small or start something on the side, it will grow over time and you will definitely reap the rewards. And to me, if I think about South Africa and the situation that many of us in South Africa face, I do believe for people to start out having businesses, becoming financially independent is a critical factor for South Africa to improve our overall quality of life. So I want to wish you well with your new venture that you want to put in place. Like I said, just take that first step and go for it. Don't be scared. You can do it. Then I really want to thank you for listening to this presentation. I really hope that it added value to you and that you will be able to go back and apply these principles that you have learned during this session, and that it will help you to set up your business in a good way right from the start, to build up a good foundation and to be able to become a successful business owner in future.